Welcome to our next episode of Vendor Voices. And today we have the one and only Ray Roman. And we're going to get his insight on wedding cinematography in the industry and the high-end market. So we're really excited about what we're going to learn from you today.
Awesome.
All right. So to get started, why did you get into wedding cinematography?
First of all, lower your expectations here.
Okay, sorry.
Just lower them. Because
I'm really short.
you sell me better than I sell myself.
Well, when you got work that looks like yours, it's kind of easy to do.
Well, so let's get through this.
All right. So why did you decide to change careers from being a law enforcement officer to, like, how do you get from there to, like, I want to photograph wedding films?
Do you really want this story?
Like, we want the PG-13,
You don't want like the whole story.
not the whole story,
Okay.
but like
So
a good one.
I never intended to leave my previous job. This was all a mistake. This was all an accident. Like this was never meant to happen the way that it happened. And I blame my kids for all this.
Your kids?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the only intention I had was to convert all their little childhood videos to DVD, because I had all these tapes laying around my house that nobody ever watched. So I said, you know what, we got to convert this to a DVD so we can pop it in the player and just watch all our kids' videos. But I needed a gadget that would transfer all those tapes to DVD. So I went to Best Buy. They had the gadget, but that gadget came with like an introductory software to video editing. I'm like, okay. So I go home, I drop this thing in the computer, I connect the tapes to the computer, and it brings you into this, like, it's like a consumer, remember Pinnacle Studio? You ever heard of that? Yeah, so it's Pinnacle Studio.
Yeah.
So I load this thing up, and I'm telling you, within 30 minutes, I was like the Steven Spielberg of my house. So I'm like, I swear to God. So I'm literally creating these movies of my kids' home videos, like actual movies with like titles, intros, ending, credits. I mean, you name it. So I was like obsessed, like completely obsessed with this. So when I ran out of their home videos on cassettes, I went to work and I told all the cops, I said, if you have any home videos, photos, whatever kind of media you have, send them to me. I'm going to make a movie out of it. So I started doing that for like months. Everybody's just like, they're offloading.
Yeah. You got
Your tapes at my desk. They're giving me photos. I'm doing photo montage movies. I'm doing, kids' home videos, movies, like birthday party videos, but I'm obsessed with just making movies of this stuff. So my camera was old. My camera was outdated. It was like 8 or 9 years old. And I said, you know what? I want to make my kids' videos look better. So I went out and bought the latest, and it was still like, still a cassette camera, but it's up to date. So I buy this thing and I start filming my kids a whole bit. And a couple of the guys in the department knew I had I had a new fancy little camera. I didn't know that camera was used by wedding videographers. Didn't even know. That was like one of the most popular cameras at the time for wedding videographers. So one day a cop comes up to me and he says, hey, I'm getting married. You think you can film it? And I said, heck yeah. Like, no experience, no nothing. I said, absolutely. So I didn't want to film it by myself. So I'm in the detective bureau at the time. So I go to my crime scene guy and I'm like, hey, you film all these crime scenes and stuff, right? And he's like, yeah. I was like, you think you can film a wedding with me? And he goes, heck yeah. So that was my second shooter. So I literally, it's me, a detective, and a crime scene guy shooting this wedding. And we did pretty good. We did pretty good for what it was.
Right.
But I didn't know what a wedding video was supposed to look like. So I said, let me go online and see how the professional guys do it. So I go online and I start surfing around and I find a bunch of wedding videos. And I said, these aren't that good. I think I can do better. So I edit this video together. It was the cheesiest thing you've ever seen in your life. This is like 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. This is like going back.
That's when I used to colorize flowers.
Yeah. This was like the animated transition.
Yeah.
And, if you got like the rose petal animations, like drawn on the video, that was like high speed. Yeah. I was like, yeah, that like set you apart. Um, so, so I edited this thing together and I still wasn't going to jump into weddings. Like I still wasn't thinking like lead police. Like that's my career. That's my pension. That's my everything. That's all my benefits, steady pay. I was never thinking about becoming a wedding videographer until another cop at the agency, he comes up to me and he was like one of these nerdy guys that knew all about accounting and numbers and all this. And he goes, hey, all that equipment you're buying, because then I got a computer, I had the camera, I got a new light and all this stuff. And he goes, hey, if you incorporate like a company, you can write all this stuff off on your taxes. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah. So I was like, no shit. So he helps me like get the whole thing going with like somebiz.org, like Florida.
Yeah.
So I do that. Well, I needed a company name. So we're all like sitting around the lunch table. And I said, hey, I need a company name because I'm gonna incorporate. So one of my other buddies, who actually he's the chief of police there now. So he says, he goes, hey, name it Roman Empire. I'm like, that sounds badass.
It does.
But it's cheesy as hell. Yeah, and at the time I'm thinking like, yeah, Gladiator, Roman Empire, Gladiator. And actually like I started putting the website together, and of course like the theme of the page had to be like gladiators.
Yeah.
So I still wasn't even thinking about ever leaving police work to do this. But when I had the company, I thought to myself, I said, I technically have a company.
Yeah.
Like I can technically charge people money for making wedding videos. And I said, let me test it out. And I did. And I think within a year and a half, I was slammed. I literally had a wedding every weekend, but I was only charging like $400.
And that's probably why I was booked like every weekend. Listen, I remember when I was growing up, I remember looking at my dad's packages.
Yeah.
And they were $3.99.
Yep.
$4.99.
Yeah.
$5.99.
Yeah.
And then after he went to like some conference, some guy had an a la carte package that he just threw out there at $2,500.
Yeah.
But that was it. And no one ever booked the a la carte package.
Yeah.
Right. So
funny story. I started doing the $400 things, but then I had all the packages, right? I had like the platinum package, the diamond, the gold, the silver. I had like every form of metal, right?
Right.
Packages. And I talked to a bride one time, and the only thing I had to show was like a 2-minute little teaser that I threw together, right? Because I'm telling you, my raw footage at the time, it was a disaster. I was still trying to figure out exposure and composition, like all that stuff. But I had this 2-minute teaser that was really good. I mean, because you only had to grab like the best stuff from a whole wedding. And I did that. And that was the only thing that this bride saw was that 2-minute little teaser. Never asked me to see like full wedding video, another teaser, like full portfolio, like nothing. And she says, I want to hire you for my thing. And I threw out higher prices. I threw out like, there was still like 400, but then it was like 1,200. And then like 1,600 was the top. And she said she was going to book me for the top. And I almost had like a heart attack, because like $1,600 to a cop 20 years ago was like 20 or 30 grand now. It was just, is sick. So she doesn't call me for like 2-3 days. And it's all I'm thinking about is like, she told me she was going to hire me. She's not calling me back or whatever. So I was thinking, maybe I'll call her, because I just wanted to do the wedding. I didn't even care if it was free.
Right.
Maybe I'll call her and just tell her I'll do it for free. Right. So I was about to call her. And I said, no. And she's going to think I'm desperate. And then maybe I'm going to lose the job because she's going to think I'm desperate. So I ended up calling her back, but not with the intention of offering it for free. And as soon as she picked up, she's like, oh my God, I'm putting the check in the mail right now.
Don't you love that?
It was incredible. And I got to tell you something. if there was one wedding in my career that I could have back, I wish it would have been that one.
Why?
Because I always look at what I'm doing now. And I wish my first bride would have had what I do now. Even though I charge that much more, I just, and I'm going to tell you another reason why. This bride was so beautiful. They were such an amazing couple. They were so much fun. The wedding was the bomb. It was like incredible. And I've always thought like, and look, their wedding video came out good for what it was back then for $1,600, right? And it was not even like HD or anything like this. Like you're talking like
Cassette.
it wasn't even 720p. It was literally 2 cassette. This was like standard definition.
Was that 480?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just always thought of my first video. And I said, man, if I could go back in time knowing what I know now with the gear that I have now, that would have been the wedding.
Yeah. But you wouldn't be where you are now if you weren't there.
Yeah. But you know what's funny is I always think like, what do my past clients think? Because I'm always like every year trying to post like better stuff, right? Better stuff. And I always think like, what do these clients of mine from like 15, 20 years ago think when they see me posting this crazy stuff now? And I got to tell you something. They all write me on their anniversaries and they said, we love our wedding video. We watch it every year. Thank you so much. And I'm just like, really? I feel like saying, really? Like, yeah, like I think it's garbage because I have such high expectations for what I do now. But man, like one thing I can tell you is that no matter what level I've ever been at, I've always put in my heart and soul. So whatever it was, whatever their situation was, whatever my situation was, me and Jessica, it's my wife, she's my boss. We've always gone out and given it everything we could. Like we've never had a day off. We've never said, you know what, screw this. We've been around a long time. Let's just take a day off. Like I will never do that to a couple ever.
Dude, when you were telling me the only thing that you had to show her was that 2 minutes, I'm in my mind, I'm like, that's not what you had to show her.
Yeah.
It's your passion. It's the passion that you had from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's the passion that you've been able to maintain over the past 2 decades. And really, like, that is what separates you from everybody else.
But I couldn't explain to her my passion back then the way that I could explain it to her today because I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the experience. I didn't have all that. But look, I stand by every job that I've ever done because I know we've always gone out and killed ourselves. Like to the point, and you felt this, where like the next day you couldn't even walk.
Yeah.
Like you're just slow to get out of bed. And as you get older, it gets even slower.
I know.
That kind of thing. So we won't talk about that too much.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of stretching.
So that's how I got into this. And it's not how I ended up leaving the police department, but to shorten the story a little bit, I just got too busy. I got inundated with the wedding stuff. And I got to tell you, like my childhood dream was to become a cop. Like that was literally it for me. That was my passion. That was my everything. And I didn't think that I could have two passions. Right. I didn't know that existed. I thought you just have one passion, you chase that, and that's your dream, and that's, you want to make that work. And I got to tell you, man, like I fell in love with doing these movies. I wasn't even really, honestly, like at that time, I wasn't thinking about the couple so much as kind of like the coolness of what I was doing with the film. And, I always got one of the compliments that I always got, funny enough, and this might explain like the trajectory of where I've gone, with the company, is even from way back when, what the number one comment that I always got on my work? Always. To this day, like from the very first wedding, it looks like a movie.
Yeah.
And that was it for me. That was like, that's what drives everything. Like even today, I deliver these films and they tell me it looks like, excuse my French, it looks like a fucking movie. and we're in it. Like, I don't know how you did it,
Yeah.
but it looks like a movie. And that, like, it drives me. But I got to tell you, like, thank God I have Jessica, because Jessica is so emotionally connected to the wedding. Whereas, like, I feel like a guy, you're more connected to like the cool factor stuff, right?
Right.
I'm into like just delivering something really cool. And obviously like connecting all the dots, right? Like their chemistry, their love, the event, the vibe, the people, all that stuff. But I tell you, like Jessica, she's so connected to the words. You know that I leave a wedding and I don't remember what they said ever. Like like vows, speeches, like all that stuff. I never remember. And as soon as we leave the wedding, because now I'm thinking about we got to put this thing together. And like I know I filmed my ass off and you filmed your ass off and we got really cool stuff. But like we need something to connect all this stuff, which is their story. And every time we leave the wedding, I was like, how are the speeches? Like, how's the ceremony? How's the speech? Just how is the words? And she'll tell me, she goes, unbelievable. And I said, thank God, because that's what you need.
Yeah.
Like I could do all this stuff. I can go out and I can film all this stuff to look good. We can do FPV stuff and drone stuff, location shots and candid shots and all that stuff. But if you're missing the story, it's not the same. I rather have, I've always said this, I rather have a simple wedding with a great story than a blowout bells and whistles wedding with a limited story or no story.
For me, what makes me more excited about a wedding is how excited the bride and groom are about what we're going to do for them.
I had a wedding last December, and I don't know if it was you that I told about this couple. I said, if we had that couple for every wedding, my gosh, they were just, you couldn't script it any better. Like their words and their chemistry and the love was like next level. And it wasn't a super blowout wedding. I mean, it was a really nice wedding, but it wasn't like, a couple of weddings that we've done, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just like bells and whistles everywhere and just crazy stuff. This one was just so much heart and soul and love. And you see it, man. Like, like you don't even
Like when it gives you goosebumps,
it gives you goosebumps. Like it was crazy. I left that wedding knowing this is a home run. I don't even have to review the footage. This thing, regardless of the footage, it can't fail. This is just so good. Like, and I didn't remember all the words, but I was certainly listening at some point because it was just so good. It was so good. But I'll tell you the other defining moment for me. When I decided to leave the police department and get into this full time, because I just had too much work. Like I had a heavy caseload in the detective bureau, and then it was going to be too much. And to be honest with you, I don't want to say that I felt out of love with police work. I just felt like madly in love with this now.
Right.
This became like an obsession. I was really obsessed. It's all I wanted to do was just the wedding stuff.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I made a decision that I was going to leave. But here was my own personal stipulation. This was a promise that I made to myself. I said, there's no way that I'm going to leave my childhood dream job and ever become an average wedding videographer. Like that was the rule. And I said, and I told myself, I said, look, I don't have to be the best, right? Yeah, you never know you're the best, right? Or one of the best. But I said, as long as I'm one of the top people, I don't have to be the top person, but I just want to be one of the top people. I never want to be average. And that was kind of like, I said, I'll do it. I'll leave this job. I'm going to do this thing full time, but I'm going to try to make something out of this. Like, I'm going to try to like really, really like go for it. And
you've done okay.
I did okay. I did okay. But I'll tell you this though. There was one thing I didn't like about wedding videography at the time. And that was that the videos were so long. I mean, this 20 years ago. And 2 hours was the standard.
I remember
2 hours was the highlight video.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like 2 hours was it. And I remember like, no matter how good I got, I would play that 2 hours back. And there was just little things that I liked about it, but then you got to sit through the
Right.
long stuff. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I can't do this. Like, I have to love everything about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I decided to really go against the grain. And people thought I was nuts. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make these things. I didn't have a length on there, right? Like a predetermined length. I just said, look, I'm going to edit. And when the interesting stuff ends, that's when the film ends, right? I'm going to have everything in there. But as soon as it gets like repetitive, too long and drawn out, a little bit boring, stretched out, to where like you feel you need a TV remote, the fast forward remote, I'm going to cut it. So I started like just trimming. But I didn't know what wedding I was going to do it with, because this was a gamble. Because these clients, first of all, like, you're contractually obligated to deliver like 2-hour thing. So I remember I got this couple, and it was at the Biltmore. And it was an older couple, like they were in their 40s. And they had actually gotten married in a courthouse 20 years before, but they never had like an actual wedding. So this was the actual wedding. So I said, maybe I'll do it on the next wedding, because this couple, if any couple is going to want to see like their full thing, it's going to be this couple. So we went on and shot this wedding, and it was incredible. They were in their 40s. They looked like models. I think you know them. Oh my God, what's their names? Blonde girl. Cabrera.
I did that one. We did that wedding.
We did the wedding.
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
Michael Cabrera.
You got to be kidding.
With the blood, they had 2 kids. I
didn't even remember that. Okay. This is incredible. Okay. I did not remember that was you.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I don't think we like really were, I don't think we were connected yet. I think you just happen to be the photographer.
Yeah.
Happen to be the video.
No, they hired us definitely.
Yeah, whole bit.
I remember their whole story. They got married. They were having a first party because they were married.
Yeah.
They had kids.
Yep.
And they didn't have any money.
Their kids were at the wedding.
Their kids were at the wedding. And then I remember they made a very good life for themselves.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're like, we're going to have a wedding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she was gorgeous. And he's like a stud. Stud.
Yeah.
He still looks great.
Let me ask you this. How was the wedding?
It was amazing.
It was insane.
Amazing.
Like, his words were incredible. Her words, like speeches, like it had all the bells and whistles.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
The preparations were at the Biltmore.
Yep.
And the wedding was at the Comer Hall, or
I don't even remember.
the Women's Club. It was one of those like halls.
No, I thought it was at the Biltmore. I thought so. Because
I remember they had a choreographed dance.
Maybe. You got a better memory than me.
Well,
so I trust you.
Okay. I think I remember.
I trust you more than I trust my brother. Yeah. But anyways, so when I was looking at all their footage and stuff, I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it with this wedding. I swear to God, this is a true story. That was literally the turning point, not just for me. And, I don't want to toot my own horn. That was the turning point for the entire wedding industry as you know it today. Because like after that wedding, I ended up doing that wedding, the film, shorter. I delivered them 17 minutes. Okay. And I was scared. I was literally scared, but I was already prepared to deliver the 2-hour thing. But I said, you know what? Let me just throw it out there and see what they say. Because Tom, I'm telling you, that film was so good. You know what I did that year? Remember when Weeva was around?
Yeah.
It was like the international association for wedding videographers. I submitted it for an award to see how I would place. I was #1 in the world.
That's awesome.
For their film. And after that, I started teaching it. I started teaching at Weeva and all this stuff. And I remember the first time I took it to Weeva, all the old timers, these guys been around 40 years. And they said, you're nuts. We're going to get so many complaints. There's no way this is going to work. And my counter to that was, what are they going to complain about?
Right.
That it's too good?
Right.
And they were like, right? So I'm going to tell you, like, it took a couple years, but people started getting their videos down to like 45 minutes, right? And then a couple years later, it was down to like 30 minutes. I was still doing the 15 to 20. I was still doing the 15 to 20. Oh, and by the way, I delivered that film to the Cabreras. And you know what they asked for after I delivered that film? Nothing. To this day, they've never asked me for a full film. They've never asked me for raw footage. Nothing. They got that film and they were obsessed. And that's when I knew it was going to work. I said, if that's going to work with a couple that waited 20 years to have that memory, it's going to work on anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody and everybody. So I totally switched it up, and I was only delivering the 15 to 20 minutes. And now I was loving everything about like what I was doing. You know, what I was filming, what I was editing, what I was delivering. And that kind of set the stage for everything now, because everything now is like, there's people delivering 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I've tried that. I can't do it. Like, for a full film, I feel like I'm cheating the couple, you know, because especially like a lot of the weddings that I do,
It depends on the type of wedding.
it depends on the type of wedding. But for the most part, like if I'm at like a 2 or 3 day wedding, oh yeah, I can't do it. Like, you know, look, I can sell it and I can deliver it, but I just feel like I'm cheating them.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more there. I have found, like, for me personally, because I still love to tell the story. I feel like 10 to 12 minutes is a sweet spot. I feel like any wedding, doesn't matter what happened at the wedding, 10 to 12 minutes is a slam dunk.
Yeah.
I mean, you can really, and it's so funny because I deal with, you know, like you deal with traditional parents all the time, right?
All the time.
And it's never the couples that ask me about longer films. It's always the parents that are probably paying for the wedding.
Right.
And I get it. Like, I know that, like, curiosity is killing them, right? Because they're thinking you were there for like 10 hours.
Right.
There's got to be much more, so much more than like 10 or 12 minutes, right? And the analogy that I always give is, I said, you know, you have to think about this like a Hollywood movie, right? How long is a Hollywood, like, finished film? Like an hour and a half?
Yeah. How many
Yeah. They
months?
filmed for a year.
Yeah.
And they have scripts, they have storyboards, they have multi-million-dollar sets. I mean, some of the weddings I go to, same thing, same kind of thing, but they have producers, directors, professional actors, like all this stuff, and they film for a year. Imagine, like, the final product is 90 minutes, right? We have 1 day. Like, it's going to be impossible for me to dig up enough content in 1 day to give you 90 minutes of anything that's going to entertain you.
Well, I mean, if you were to, and when you compare it to photography, we take thousands of images.
Same concept.
But when I go to enter a wedding album for competition, I don't want any page to look like the next page. I want every time you turn that page, it has to have impact. It has to be different.
Yep.
It has to touch your heart. And you can't do that with 100 or 200 or 300 pictures.
Yeah.
Most of the time I'm entering competition books, got 50 images in it.
Yeah.
Right. We took a lot more than that, but you know, it's kind of like when you print something up you put something up on the wall, right? You're not going to go look at the contact sheet and all the proofs. You know, you get that one image and it tells you everything you need to know about that one moment.
You approach your books the same way I approach the film when I'm cutting it. Because think about it, like, you're dealing with like moments that are captured in an instant, right? So, like, when you're looking at an album, the brain's processing the information very quick, right? That's why people kind of like, they do like this with the page.
Mm-hmm.
So when they watch a film, you know, that shot has got to live on screen for like 2 or 3 seconds and be interesting for 2 or 3 seconds, which is kind of difficult because the brain processes stuff so quickly. But as soon as it gets to the frame that it became uninteresting, I cut.
Yeah.
So, like, in the edit, it's like cut, and I'll watch literally one clip back 1,000,000 times just to see how it feels. Because if it's too short, maybe you kind of cut them short of like a great moment and they felt cheated because it cut off too quick, right?
Right.
So you got to kind of let it breathe a little bit. But something else that's maybe, it's interesting for like the second, but if it drags on too long, the brain's already processed it and there's really nothing there. And so I kind of approach it the same way. Like there has to be like, for you, it's page to page. For me, it's kind of like clip sequence to clip sequence.
Yes.
And there's got to be that impact. Like I don't want stale potatoes coming up at any point. I want like French fries. Like I want like this journey of French fries, right? McDonald's fries.
You can tell you're fasting.
It's not sure right now. All I'm thinking about is food. I'm on a water fast, by the way. This,
I know.
yeah, it really sucks. But anyways, yeah. But if it lacks the impact, I feel like you're losing out. Especially when it comes to maybe submitting your stuff to your awards.
Yeah.
And then for me, it's all the marketing material that I have is the work that I'm doing at these weddings. So if I get lazy, if I'm not as particular in the edit, if the attention to detail falls off, it's going to show.
So we're gonna like to dive into this a little bit more. Like I can scroll and I can stop and I can be like, that is a Ray Roman film. Like without seeing your name, without seeing anything,
Yeah.
I can just, it doesn't take but a second.
Yeah.
What do you think makes your style so recognizable?
That's a great question.
Absolutely.
And yeah, the thing that you said in there is style. And the funny thing is that I refuse to acknowledge that I have a style.
Amen.
I will acknowledge that I am obsessed with the basic fundamentals: lighting, composition, lens choice, backgrounds, controlling background. Like my stuff, my style, if you want to call it a style, is just a fundamental thing, where I'm obsessed with how you can kind of change the way something looks by changing the angle of light or
Right.
the subject to the light. Like you know all this stuff. So I think I know for a fact, the reason why people know Ray Roman film when they're scrolling is because it looks good. It looks really good.
Right.
Right.
It looks like a movie.
It looks polished. It looks like a movie, like I just look at my work and I just see something that looks really polished, but some people look at it and they see something that looks produced. Like,
Dude, I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. But don't forget, like I'm there with you, right? And I'll be sitting there and we'll be on the dance floor,
Yeah.
right? And you'll be sitting there and you're filming the bride and groom and I'm taking the picture and I'm looking down at what you're doing and I'm like, that looks way better than mine, right? Like you're the same, like, yeah. But there is something to be said about the way that you film. Listen,
you know why? I'm going to tell you why, and you know this. And I teach this in the workshops. And the reason why it looks so good and the angle you chose at that particular moment is the way that it is because we've trained our brain to walk into a room and see things, right? Where you're visualizing and you're like, okay, maybe the first time you saw something, maybe you shot it a kind of bland way because you just didn't put all the pieces together. But after time, I feel like you're training your brain to identify scenarios so quickly. Like when you walk into a bride's getting ready room, it only takes you but a few seconds to already know where she's going to stand, where the light source is going to come from, what the background is going to look like, what lens you're going to put on the camera, right? Like it's very, it's instantaneous, right? So like if you look down at my monitor and you see something, it's maybe because I've been like in a similar spot before, right? And I know exactly what angle is going to kick. So it's kind of things like that. And I do the same thing. Like when I look at you and Mario, I'll tell you, man, like one of the things with me is when I tell you this is an obsession, it's an obsession to the point where like, if I look at the back of your camera or Mario and I see like a kick-ass image that I didn't see, I'm getting internally frustrated with myself that I didn't see the same thing that you guys are shooting. So it's like that level of obsession. But I think honestly, if you're not obsessed with this craft, I don't think that you will ever reach the pinnacle. Like you'll never reach like the top floor if you're not truly obsessed. Like, look, I go to sleep doing this and I wake up doing this, right? And everything in between is me doing this.
Right.
It's all I do. It's all I think about. I'm always thinking of new ways to improve my work, which is really hard because like once you get to a certain level, you're like, what do I do next? Like what's left? But there's always something that's left because you know what? Your composition can always be better. The speed in which you see things can always be faster. I don't see everything, but like I'm programmed a certain way to where
we joke about it. Mario,
it's a few seconds.
it's funny. We almost do the same thing, but Mario jokes about it. He goes, "Oh, look at Ray. He's going all Rain Man on us right now."
Yeah, I do Rain Man.
Yeah, he goes, "Ray, will you walk into a room and it's like,
yep, studying." Yeah, no, but I'm telling you, like when I do that Rain Man shit, I'm telling you, I'm good for about 10, 11 shots.
yeah,
Like I'm already boom, 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 boom. You do the same thing. You walk in, you're like, okay, boom, boom, boom. I know where my light needs to be. I know where I want to be. I know the lenses. Like I'm telling whoever the assistant is, I'm like, I need this lens. I need this lens. Just have it on standby because you know what? Like you've seen me work and I see you work, and it's not that it's not like we're running around crazy at all.
in fact, when I work with you,
Yeah,
I feel like I'm not working."
yeah, because you know what? 80% of what we do is here. It's mental. Like we're seeing things, we're visualizing, we're planning the shot, and then we're executing. So the actual like physical execution behind a camera doing it is like 20%.
Right.
But the thought process that's driving those shots is 80%. That's what people don't get.
Right.
They think like, I'm speaking for videographers and I'm sure for photographers too, because I see them work and I see the back of their cameras when they're shooting. And I'm just like, my first thought is there's literally zero thought process driving any of their shots, that kind of thing. So, and the reason I'm really looking at the back of their cameras is to see if they're outdoing me, or they're seeing something that I didn't see or whatever. But a lot of times, like I look at the back, I know kind of like based on the lens they're using, the angle they're taking, and the lighting situation, I'm already telling myself that's got to be a shit shot. I call them shit shots, even with video, right?
Right.
I said, it's got to be a shit shot, but you never know. So I wait till the photo comes up on the back of the camera. I was like, I knew it. No, it's just shit shot. I don't know what they're going to do with it in post, but to me, I'd never use that shot in a million years.
For me, I want my work from camera to look like what it like. I don't want someone to be like, "Oh wow, what a transformation." I'll be like, "Oh, it's really similar." Like, "Oh, right out of camera." Yeah, right out of camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But that's so style for me. And look, there's certainly a style when it comes to, I would say, like music choices.
Yeah.
But I like cinematic stuff. Like I like look, my teasers are kind of like a misconception because trailers are intended to get you excited to watch the movie,
right.
but you don't see the movie. And for me, my movies are better than my trailers that are online. It's crazy.
Right. Well, because they tell more of the story.
They tell the whole story, and it's so much more. I mean, it's just incredible to watch one of the full films because the way that I want the full film to feel like is if you're in a film in a movie theater, literally watching a movie. Like, I don't want you to feel like you're watching some action movie trailer. I want you to feel like you're back at your wedding, but it's like made into this film, right? Like just a beautiful film. So that's kind of like what I'm all about. I say it's kind of like a movie style, I guess.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is like, I'm not one dimensional. I don't only film one kind of wedding.
No.
I film any kind of wedding you throw at me, whether it's, Indian, Jewish, country, like Mexican, Middle Eastern, Russian, like doesn't matter. I'm going to tell that story. And you know, the film is going to feel like that wedding felt to me there, you know, between the couple's love, the chemistry, the vibe of the wedding, you know, because you got to understand, like, I'm there, you know, how many hours are we there at a wedding reception? You know, 4 or 5 hours. I'm listening to all the music they played. Like, that's their music, that's their vibe. So I'm incorporating what I'm hearing into the rest of the stuff,
Right.
their story, their chemistry, the love, the words, like all that stuff. So, you know, the fun part is putting all that stuff together.
Especially from all the different cultures and
It's amazing to be able to put all that stuff together. And especially like in a time like today, right? The technology and the things that you're able to do now is just, it's mind boggling. Because I'm going to tell you something, and I'll just give you one example. And I'll give you this example because next week at my workshop, I have my colorist coming in, right? And he's going to go through this thing on a program called DaVinci Resolve.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you remember, but DaVinci Resolve was only for Hollywood movies. Back in the day, it was unheard of that a consumer would have access to DaVinci Resolve. You know why? DaVinci Resolve costs $250,000 to get a license to use DaVinci Resolve for like Hollywood movie. It was only for blockbusters. Like, who else is going to afford DaVinci Resolve? So years later, Blackmagic, who, you know, developed DaVinci, they released DaVinci Resolve to the public for free. It's just like, what is that? Like, something that used to cost $250,000 is now free to use. It is insanity. And you know, like these little cameras, they can almost fit in your pocket, and they film better, like 100 times better than the cameras from 15, 20 years.
right. Your iPhone does.
Your iPhone does. I feel like as a wedding filmmaker or somebody just getting into this, you have such an advantage because you're coming into an industry where the road has already been paved for you to come in, produce shorter films, have high-end digital cameras, lenses. Look, there was no internet when there was really no, there was forums and stuff like that, but
Yeah, there was no.
there was no Facebook. There was
You
no
couldn't see other
Instagram.
people's work. You had
Yeah.
to go to conferences to see it.
You had to go to conferences. There was nobody teaching. The only person teaching everything that he knew about wedding videography from way back when is me. That's it. I was the only one, because that was the other thing I got in trouble for by like other wedding videographers, old timers. They said, I got a call one time from a guy and he says, "Hey, don't you think you're sharing a little bit too much?" Yeah. And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Dude, you're literally giving the farm away." And I said, "Yeah, but by the time they figure out what I'm doing, I taught that, I'm probably going to be 2, 3 years ahead doing something totally different." The only people that have to worry about teaching everything they know to somebody is people that don't evolve.
It's people that stop doing.
They stop doing. They stop. So I'm just not one of those people. So, you know, it's almost like if you met with a client right now, would you rather show your work from today or from 5 years ago?
I'll show my wedding last weekend.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So why would I be worried about the stuff from 5 years ago when there's, like, you know, for me, there's kind of like all new approaches, even though it's similar. You know what gives me the edge? It's not big, obvious things. It's little things. It's just tweaks because, you know, you do it with your work.
bro, I say we have the same Bible.
Yeah. Sit Bible. I feel like I'm talking to a mirror.
Yeah.
Just shorter, a little bit shorter, a little bit more well built. You know, it's really over time. It's not about the major things that you can do to make your work look better because it already looks like pretty freaking good. You know what I mean? You guys win every award in the photography industry, but there's little things that you'll notice that maybe somebody else won't notice.
It's I say the difference between good and great in this business is nothing big.
No,
It is all
fine detail.
a lot of little bit things.
A lot of little things. So imagine, you know what happens is over time, when you start adding all those little things, they become a bigger impact on what you're producing.
And then people can't even, they
Can't even explain it.
they don't even know why it looks better,
They can't explain.
right? But it changes how you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go through the same thing. Look, I know for a fact that if a client goes to my site and sees my work first before they start looking at other videos that might be out there, not all of them, but like most of them, I already know, like, I'm leaps and bounds ahead of like most stuff that they could possibly be shown because I'm just so sick in the head, obsessed with details. And you know what I mean? Like, I already know, like, it's so polished to a level that I would be surprised if there's something else out there at that level. I'm so confident in like what I'm doing right now. And everything pays off. You know what I mean? Because I've grinded at a level, right? I've grinded at a level that's not normal. So this is the reward, right, with that. You know, I feel like whatever you put in is what you get out. If you don't put nothing in, you're not going to get nothing out. So I'm like that. And I'm like, you know, I'm still, I remember like 3 years ago, I did a wedding. I thought it was the pinnacle of my career. And it was a wedding in Lake Como, and they had Andrea Bocelli singing there.
That film was insane.
And you know what I told myself when I left that wedding and I edited that piece that I did? I said, I don't know how I'm going to replace this film on my website. Like, it's always going to be number one because I'm never going to do anything better than what I have done for this wedding. Do you know that that wedding is barely clinging on to my website now? It's like, if there's 9 videos on there, it's probably 8 or 9. It's crazy that, man, you can outdo your best self if you just are driven.
What I have found is, you know, when you proceed forward with passion,
Yeah.
right? Life is going to present opportunities. There's going to be gifts given to you for you to perform, right? When you're ready for them. And I feel that throughout my career, regardless of what it is in the school division or this or that, it's when I'm ready for that client. Yeah, that's when the client is going to be presented, and that's when the opportunity
You know,
will come.
funny you say that because I spent a lot of time, I spent a lot of years doing this, always having very low self-esteem, like self-confidence. Like my confidence level was always like, yeah, they say I'm on the top, but I don't feel like I'm on the top. I always felt like there's work to be done. There's always work to be done. I didn't feel like I was there yet. I feel like I'm there now, but I didn't feel like I was there yet. Right? I was being put on pedestals, you know, like, oh, he's the guy, he's the top guy, and stuff. But honestly, like, I went out and did those jobs and I produced whatever I was producing, but I just felt like there was so much more to know and to learn and to kind of like put into my work that I just wasn't doing. Like, I didn't feel like a filmmaker. Like, you know, when you know, back in the day, you're a videographer, but at some point that wasn't cool enough. Right. So now they threw these titles around of like cinematographer, filmmaker, things like that. And I got very uncomfortable when they did that because I just felt like I was a videographer.
You're a video guy.
I'm a video guy. Like, I'm a wedding video guy, but now you're tossing around this like filmmaker, cinematographer. And now I'm relating to like films, like actual like films. And I'm thinking like, I'm not these guys. Like, I'm not nowhere near or like what these guys are doing, you know? So I didn't feel comfortable. Like, I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin, you know, especially if you were around like filmmakers, you know?
Right.
All right. But sometimes, look, sometimes you got to put everything in perspective too. You know, not everybody's a great filmmaker, but I just always wanted to, like I said from the get-go, I never wanted to be average or feel or feel average. You know, that was my whole point, like, when I left the old job. So, man, I think it's part of the sickness. Like, I always feel like I gotta be better. I gotta keep evolving. I can't stay stuck in the mud, because if you stay stuck in the muds, they're gonna pass you by, you know? Like, I feel like, yeah.
Yeah. But, I don't get the feeling that you're motivated by fear.
No,
Uh,
not at all. Not
and
now. No, and not even then. It was just something that was always in the
Right.
back of my mind. Like, just not feeling like you were really like a filmmaker.
All right. This is
And maybe it's because it's a wedding thing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's like I remember being at the Faith Farm for weddings, right? I remember the progression, and then I remember the
Film
thing.
weddings. I used to film weddings in people's backyards.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's just like, I think you get caught up, and, I didn't really realize, I think I gave too much credit to filmmaking, because I didn't know about filmmaking,
right. It was like this
like commercial
mythological,
filmmaking,
yeah.
and one of the things that I realized was, when I started getting commercial jobs, was how much easier commercial filmmaking was, right? As opposed to wedding filmmaking. I'm like, this stuff's a breeze.
Remember Margaritaville with
You know what I mean? So, like,
yeah,
you control everything. You control the lighting, the audio, the set, the actors. You know, like, if you didn't get it on this take, there's another take.
well, we beat out a huge production
Yeah,
company out of LA that there was not a budget on
yeah,
this thing that they weren't going to meet, right?
right.
And what was crazy is the response. We had a wedding team doing a huge commercial production,
Yeah.
and the marketing teams couldn't believe how much we were getting in such a short period of time.
Fast, because you didn't need a huge crew.
Right.
That's the other thing. You know, I used to get hired by a producer. He used to do music videos, but actual, like, music videos. And he would only hire me to come shoot. And sometimes I'd come in, I'd have to do interviews and all that stuff. Um, he had certain budgets. And every time he brought a film crew, right? Like, I'm like the DP, I'm filming, I'm doing all this stuff. And every time I asked, like, somebody that was setting up a light to go grab me, like, an XLR cable for audio, they'd give me, like, a deer in the headlights look. Like, what? XLR? I was like, yeah, it's like an audio cable. It goes there. I'm just here for the light. And then if I ask, like, the sound guy, hey, can you go get, like, a light stand and, like, or put this light on this light stand or whatever? Deer in the headlights. They didn't know these are people that went to film school, right? These people went to film school, and I couldn't believe that these people, like, whatever they were trained in, they knew that job. Like, if they're there to be a gaffer, they know gaffing. If they're there to set up a light, they know how to set up a light. If they're there to do audio, that's what they do. If it's set design, that's what they do. You can't ask them to do this, or that, right? Like we do in the wedding industry. Look,
We're lighting, we're directing, we're filming, we're keeping schedule.
think about like wedding film, and, my gosh, like, in actual filmmaking, you have colorists, you have editors, you have all the people on the set,
Yeah.
directors, producers, like, all that stuff. You go to weddings, yeah, you go to a wedding. I'm the DP, I'm the videographer, I'm the lighting guy, I'm the audio guy, I'm the editor, I'm the colorist. You're everything at a wedding. But when you go to these commercial shoots, or like a film job, you're your role. That's it.
Right.
That's the only thing you have to do. And once you're done with that, you hand it over, and somebody else takes it from there. So wedding stuff is actually easier, but psychologically, I always felt like I was inferior to people that had gone to film school, because I have no formal education as it relates to video or film. I have nothing. I have on-the-job training. That's it. I have going out there, making mistakes, and learning, going back, hoping not to make as many mistakes.
So to go back on what you just said, though, that in itself is the difference. In fact, I believe that technology and how great videos and photos look, even from our cell phones today, actually almost work against someone who is really trying to learn their craft.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to know, you don't need to understand the color. You don't need it. It looks good enough.
Yeah.
So you bypass all of the things that were essential for us to produce work that look normal.
Yeah.
Right? Now it's like, oh, producing, normal work is great, but all the stuff that goes into that is what really separates the difference between the people that really know what they're doing or the people that are picking up a camera and pretending.
Yeah.
Right now, what is your target market, right? And how do your clients hire you?
I don't really have a target client. I just have whoever wants to hire me. Whoever vibes with my work, whoever, obviously my prices are a little bit more now than they were 20 years ago.
Right.
But it's not that bad. It's not that bad, but it's really whoever vibes with my work. The way that I look at it, if you really want me at your wedding, I really want to be there. That's, kind of like my approach. If you're going to give me the honor of having me at your wedding, I'm literally going to just leave it all out there. I'm going to break my back. I am so honored to be like at every wedding. So for me, it's like so personal with me and Jessica because like we feel honored to be there. It doesn't matter, simple wedding, medium wedding, blowout wedding. If you have me there, my God, what an honor. I don't care if it's back in a backyard. Actually, last year, funny enough, we shot a wedding in Washington State, and it was in a guy's backyard. But of course, he lived on a lake and like all this. But it's kind of technically it's like a backyard wedding because it was his place. But it was a simple wedding, and my gosh, what a beautiful film because all the components were there. The story. Yeah, there wasn't a ton like with his house or whatever, but I didn't focus on that. But there was so many other beautiful elements to focus on. So for me, like it doesn't have to be Lake Como or France. I mean, I love to travel and stuff like that, but I also love to, kind of chill at home and do things here. But look, if they want me at the wedding and it works with the budget, that's my client.
All right.
That's the way that it goes. Like
So
I don't
like what like how does someone hire you?
just either through a planner, like normally like some of the bigger weddings that we do, it's always going to have a planner. So I would say like in most cases, there's already a planner involved and maybe the planner's already reached out to me. I get a lot of clients that reach me on Instagram before they've even hired a planner. They're just like, look, we're looking at some dates. We've been looking at your stuff for years. You're going to be the guy. We just aren't settled on like the thing, so.
Don't you like that? I mean that.
Yeah.
But don't you love it when that there's like maybe a job that maybe they wouldn't have maybe brought your way for one reason or another.
Yeah.
But when the client comes to them and they're like, I'm using Ray Roman.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because, what happens is, believe it or not, if that's not the situation, maybe the planners maybe they already have a crew. Right. You know what I mean? Because a lot of planners kind of have their circle of vendors and maybe they're going to do those recommendations. And then the clients are never going to know that I existed.
And a lot of the big jobs, they'll have, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have their own video crews for their own agenda.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where
through that.
Right. Yeah. And where you don't have an agenda, anything other than what's best for the bride and groom. Like, how am I going to tell this story in a way that is going to touch the family in a way that nothing else can, right? Like, I don't know. Like for me, it's having your work be so bold that it doesn't matter if someone likes you, doesn't like you, thinks that, and again, and I've had people come up to me and make comments and they're like, oh, Ro, but he's got to be stuck up. And I'm like, you've never met Ray, right? You've never met him because again, you look at some of these jobs and you're like, bro, Andrea Bocelli's singing, what I mean? Morgan Freeman is, narrating, it's not tough.
Let me tell you something. Every single day for years, at least 12 to 15 years, every single day I have a different message in my inbox on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, an email, from strangers that are videographers that message me. And I have never not responded, ever. And I don't have to do it, but I feel like if they took time to write me and tell me like what an inspiration I am and just ask me like a basic question, like who am I not to, I don't feel like I've cured cancer. I just feel like, I'm a wedding videographer that's obsessed with his craft and people dig my work.
Well, it's more than that. It's me. I've experienced it, right?
Yeah, but also like, I also believe like you got to pay it forward, man. And if you do pay it forward, everything comes back to you. We've gotta, yeah, dude, you gotta pay it forward always. And if you're not paying it forward, I just feel like maybe you're not gonna have the same level of success that I've been able to achieve. Maybe because you were stuck up, and maybe because you thought, you were better than everybody else and things like that. Like that's a turnoff. People don't gravitate to that. And one of the reasons that my workshop is so successful year over year, I do it every year. And I've been doing it for so long. I've been doing the workshops for 15 years and they keep coming back.
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons a lot of like people that have already been to the workshops and seen the online courses and all that stuff, the thing that keeps them coming back is that I'm so relatable and I'm so down to earth and I'm so normal. They
Right.
tell me that. They go, dude, you're just like a normal guy. I said, yeah, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
We can just ask you anything. You'll tell us everything. And I just,
All right. So bigger,
yeah.
bigger love, bigger picture here. Why do you think, right? First of all, have this passion, right? Like, why do you have this passion, right? And what do you think the greater purpose of it is for?
Um, it's interesting that you asked that. I don't really have anybody that motivates me. Like, I don't have anybody to kick me in the butt. And, like you have your brothers and your family
Yeah.
and it's family business and things like that. I don't have anybody. So I have to kind of light my own fire. And, sometimes to kind of like self-motivate and light my fire, I always think to myself that I'm being judged by other videographers. Like every time I post something, and I know I am actually, but it sticks. It sticks because I know every time I post something, there's going to be a ton of videographers looking, and I feel, I don't know if it's true. I think it's somewhat true. I feel as though if they see my work fall off a little bit, they're going to think that I'm losing. I'm losing. You're right. It's kind of crazy thinking.
Is that lion mentality?
Dude, I'm telling you. So believe it or not, I think about other videographers when I'm working because I'm like, no, they're not going to get me on an off day. Like they're not going to, yeah.
Bro, I did the same thing, but with my brothers.
Yeah, with your brothers. Yeah. So I just feel, yeah, because they're going on and shooting ready. And yeah, and you're all coming back to the studio with the photos.
And not even from the wedding back here, back.
Yeah. You don't want to be outdone by your brothers.
No.
So it's like, look, we shot at Villa Erba in Italy, right? How many wedding videographers do you think have shot at Villa Erba? A lot. And I think about that every time I go to a new venue that I've never shot at. Actually, I shot at Erba, but it was like 12 years ago. But I'd never been back since. And I know a million videographers have been there since the last time. And before that wedding happened, I was thinking like, I can't let them outdo me. Like,
Right.
Like whatever I put up is going to have to be so crazy good that they can't think I did better than Ray Roman at Villa Erba. Right? So it's in my mind. Like, I don't know if it's a sickness.
Well, I got the same thing. Like
Yeah.
when I photograph a wedding, especially if it's a venue that I'm not referred at,
Yes.
right? Not referred
Got
at,
to blow it out the water.
right? I love it when I send those images and then like I had this for the Trump in Westchester.
Yeah.
Right. I said like the people on the day, they were all this New York cliquey crew, oh, you're from South Florida, whatever. I sent the images literally the next day teasers. It wasn't but 2 days. Their entire website for Trump
Is all
our stuff.
Yeah.
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 And like for me, I'm like, that's what I want. I want when other photographers go to look at a venue, they'd be like, oh, what did Munoz do? And be like, oh,
Yeah.
how am I going to do that? Yeah.
You know, that reaction that you just had,
Yeah.
it's the reaction that I know a lot of videographers have when they see me post something. They gotta be like, deflate. They write me and tell me, they go, "Dude, I'm just gonna sell all my stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I quit. Game over, at this point." But, I think it's what you said a couple minutes ago, and I can relate to that, and it's a lion mindset. It's a lion mentality where you're just not willing to give up the jungle. You know what I mean? Like, you're there, and you're just not willing to give up the spot yet.
Dude,
And I think it has to be like that, especially if you wanna be at a high level. If you don't have that lion mentality, I just feel
not
like
everybody's a lion.
at some
Yeah.
point, somebody's gonna take out the lion.
At some point.
Yeah, at some point,
Listen, in time, all skills are lost.
yes. I just feel like it's just not time yet.
No.
Like, I wanna decide when it's time for me to be gone. Like, I don't wanna be gone, like, as a washed up wedding videographer that everybody passed by because he's just stuck in the mud, didn't evolve, didn't do anything.
Listen, I still know cinematographers today that are still used like that, and these guys were big names.
Yeah,
Big names.
yeah.
And I'll show up and they're doing like a birthday party. And I remember 20 years ago, they were doing huge events.
Huge weddings, yeah.
And now but again, they didn't evolve. They didn't want to continue
Yeah.
to hone their skills and sharpen, listen, iron sharpens iron. And like you refine me. Like when I'm working on an event with you and Jessica, like it inspires me
Yeah.
to want to step up. And, for me, I'm at the point where I'm in my studio is like I still want the guys to know I can still fight, but I want to help them fight.
Yeah.
Like that's where I'm at. But you got to but you
But
got
you
to
have
show them.
but I'll tell you this, and I've never seen this before. One of the things that you do at a wedding, and it's incredible, and I gotta tell you, Tom, it's so inspiring, and it's so, I feel like you have such an ability to break the ice with video people, because the number one thing you say when you walk into a room, it doesn't matter if it's me, if it's this person, if it's that person, if it's somebody that you've never worked with before, your words to them, and they're so powerful, is, "Hey, I'm Tom Muñoz. I want to help you create the best wedding film you've ever created." Dude, you literally just, it's such a sense of relief knowing that this guy's going to be on my team. Like, we don't have to fight all day. Like, I'm telling you, like, probably like you know, the number one thing that's making the videographer nervous about going into a wedding is having to do a battle with the photographer. Like, the photographer's not going to let him do this, the photographer's not going to let him do that. And my gosh, to have a photographer tell them, like, "I'm not just going to work with you, I'm going to help you shoot the best wedding film you've ever shot before." Dude, it's like, you're like a different breed. And in 20 years of doing this, I've never once seen that. I mean, obviously, like, I've had photographers that are going to work with you and their team, and it's fun and they're cool and things like that. But man, to like put it out there like that, like, dude, like, I'm not just going to be your teammate. I'm going to help you. Like, whatever we have to do, because you guys do stuff, a lot different than, a lot of photographers out there in terms of like, just the consistency of your light.
Well, and to be honest, you have helped kind of mold how we think about what we do, right? Like, why am I going to be setting up flashes when that's not going to help you? And necessarily,
Yeah.
it's probably not even the best look for me,
Yeah.
right? So when I think about it as we're all one big team and we're all trying to tell this story and we want this to be an incredible experience, that doesn't happen when you do your thing and I do my thing and I'm doing over here. It has to be fluid, right? It has to flow from one thing to another. And like for me, when everybody's on the same page, the client is the one who wins.
Yeah.
Right. And we feel
I've always
great about what
that.
we do.
Dude, like, if photo and video can work together and like knock it out of the park, it's like you said, the person that benefits the most is the client.
Yeah.
We don't. We're going to go home. You know, we got to work. We got to go work on their stuff. But the person that benefited, the person that we fought for is the client.
Yeah.
You know, like we're always fighting for the client.
But I am a believer that a servant's heart, right, actually makes you a leader.
Yeah.
Right? Because when that team that you don't know, they trust that you have their best intentions, they they don't just do their job. They do it even more to help you.
Yeah.
And so it's just this like, it motivates everybody.
Yeah.
And then you get high fives and great and this, and then it's not work. And that's what, like, when I'm working with you guys, it's not work.
Yeah.
We're doing what I feel like I'm doing what I'm made to do, and I'm doing it with the best people in the world.
You know what it is too? It's like, I know when you guys are tweaking something, right? There's such teamwork going on. I know that you're not just tweaking it for you. Like you're tweaking it for us. And like when I'm setting up stuff, I'm not just thinking about us, I'm thinking about you guys.
Right.
You know, because I know for like photography, for instance, right? Like you need more light than like what we need for video, right? So I understand that. So I already know like I'm going to set the cameras a certain way to feed it a little bit more light because like it's so one way to think like, oh, I don't need that much light. And then I don't want you to use flash. You're right.
We gotta, yeah.
There's got to be a balance. And you know what? I always say I've never had a problem at a wedding with a photographer. I've never had a problem at a wedding with a professional photographer because professionals know how to be professional, and professionals care about everyone, not just themselves. You know, I feel like it's people that are just, you know, look, I find the ones that are difficult to work with. This is the number one thing that I always think when I'm working with somebody that may be a little bit difficult. I always just think they're insecure. They're insecure about what they're doing. And they almost always have a team of like 4 or 5 photographers. And that really tells me that they're just insecure with what they're doing. Maybe it's the nerves, maybe it's, you know, the event, whatever it is, it's just an insecurity. I'm always going to get my shots. Actually, you know, that stuff has just made me quicker because, you know, sometimes maybe if you're not working with, you know, a professional.
Dude, I had a guy set a tripod on the bride's dress during the getting ready.
Yeah.
Like it's on her, and he probably wouldn't move. No, you're like, you're on her dress.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, but I don't have a room. I'm like, you probably shouldn't have a tripod in this, you know, New York hotel room.
I'm probably guilty of it back in the day because you know what happens with video, especially when you're learning, right? You're learning. So you think maybe something that you saw one time is like the law of the land. And you try to force that law into every scenario that it doesn't fit. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get like sometimes maybe there's a hard-headedness that comes with it. Unless they just don't care and they're just really
ready. It's insecurity.
Yeah.
It's bottom line.
That's exactly what it is. It's just insecurity. But I feel like if people can get past the insecurity, man, they're going to do so well, man, because things just open up.
Even when you don't know, right? When you get past your insecurity, right? And like I had a guy who was a mentor of ours. He brought like, I think 15 companies public. And he told me, he goes, Tom, you show your strength when you show your heart, right? Regardless of where you're at. Like people want to help people who are passionate about what they do and are vulnerable into saying, hey, I need help, right? Like, you know, I prefer to work with somebody that is like, yo, bro, I've had my second wedding. I'll be like, I'll do whatever you need. Yeah, I'll stand right here, you know, like.
You're different though, because I'm going to tell you, if in most cases, if a video person threw that out there to like normal star, it's like feeding vultures. They'll just be like, okay, get out of the way. And then like a pack of 4 or 5 photographers.
Yeah, no, see, I do the absolute. I go, now you're on our team.
That's why I said like what you do, like your approach is so rare in that you actually want to help them. Like that's just, it's unheard of, you know? Like I feel like professionals will just be seamless and they'll work together. and stuff like that. But to find somebody that's actually willing to go out and like, no, I'm going to help you be better. And you're not BSing. You're actually going to help them do this or do that. I feel like, look, honestly, and I've thought this before. I said, if any videographer goes out with Muñoz, they don't even have to think about what they're doing. Literally just stand next to Tom or Mario, point your camera in the same direction. Honestly, like, just point the camera in the same direction, expose the same, use the same lens, and you're set, man. Like,
Dude, I even announced color temperatures.
yeah. I'm like, good. You're going to end up with such good footage just mimicking whatever they're doing, So it's not that.
Well, we were trained by a good videographer too, so we know.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I love you, brother.
No, man. You guys, look, you guys inspire me. And you guys are one of the few photographers that I work with that make me nervous after a wedding that we shoot together. And I swear to God, this is a true story. When I saw the photos come out from Ariella, I was like, man, this is too good. I said, the thing is, like, I want to at least be on par, but I don't want to be coming up short.
You didn't come up short of.
No, I didn't come up short, but that's part of the sickness. Yeah, it's all I thought about was your photos. And when we did the Villa Urba one, and I saw that get posted, I'm like, these are so good. And there was, I don't know if I told you or I told Mario, there was a couple shots in there that I didn't see, and I was so bummed out.
Oh no, why you didn't tell me?
I was so bummed out. Yeah. But like, you guys have a little bit more flexibility because, like, for instance, like when they were, it was actually during the Barat, right? I have to physically be at the Barat, but like you guys split up. So I think you were doing Barat and Mario hung back.
Yeah.
With Priya.
Oh, and did those shots on the staircase.
Oh, so
I know those are pretty nice.
I felt cheated, but you know what? I
felt cheated. You know why I feel cheated? I was doing the walkthrough with Mario, and I'm like, oh man, I want to do a picture of the bride right there.
Yeah.
And then I come back, he said, what do you think?
Yeah.
I'm like,
get it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's not nice.
Yeah. No, but it's like, but I love it, man, because you guys, like you said, like I make you better. Like I make you want to be better. You guys do the same to me because not only do I want to be as good, I want to make sure I'm not coming up short, right? This kind of thing. The one that benefits is the client. Like the one that ultimately benefits from the competitiveness and all that stuff is the client.
Listen, it doesn't matter what type of service that you're having, but when you're combining two different people, right, that are providing two different services for a common goal, that's the type of relationship I want on my team. Right? Whether it's a guy's doing construction at your house, right? I want this guy to be passionate and want to outdo the cabinet guy and this guy do that. Regardless of whatever it is, when you have a team that's doing that, the client is always the one who wins, right? And to be honest, that is when you push the limits of what you would normally do, right? Because you have that little thing, that little guy inside. Little guy.
And think about now with social media, okay? It's one more thing to think about because, when I'm at the wedding, I'm not just thinking about you guys. I'm thinking about like, marketing, right? Social media, a post, maybe a collaboration. Maybe somebody's going to, with you guys, somebody's going to post your photos. They're going to want to collaborate, right? And now that's going to drum up new clients.
You never know.
Yeah.
One thing leads to another.
Absolutely. So it's a lot more to think about. Like back in the day, there was no social.
We got hired. I actually miss that because it wasn't based on how many followers you have right now.
Yeah.
Right. It was based on your work.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's like, you get some people call and be like, well, how many followers? And you're like, what does it matter? Like that vendor's been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
But we live in a different world.
It matters now. And I'm telling you, like everything is, I feel a lot of it is all about perception, right? So like they see you on a good job. They assume you must be like, right, the best, but maybe you're not the best. Maybe you're just on the best job that weekend, right? But maybe you're going to get the next job because you were attached to that best wedding. But what if you like are the best? Like I always want to be like on my next wedding because I was the best for the job. Like I don't I don't wanna just be hooked up. Like, I want people to appreciate what I'm doing because we put a lot into it.
Yeah.
And I feel like the jobs that I get, it's because I was the best option, and I like that feeling, you know? I like to get hooked up too, but, I'm appreciative, things like that, but obviously, like, you wanna know that all the hard work that you're putting into it is, it's paying off, it's being appreciated, it's being noticed, because if it's not, then, like, if you're just getting hooked up all the time, I feel like you might get stuck in the mud if you're just getting hooked up all the time, but if you have to work for it,
What did Arnold say? He goes, "I don't wanna be comfortable," right?
never be comfortable.
Never be comfortable,
Yeah.
right?
If you're not comfortable, you're only gonna get better,
Listen,
so
like, I mean, not to get, like, super personal, but we both have children that some of them need a little bit more help than others.
yeah,
And, for me, I have noticed that it isn't making it comfortable for them
yeah,
that is best for them.
yeah,
And it's the same thing for us. We got to learn to live out of that comfort zone because that's where growth is, right? In all parts of your life. If you sit back, my grandfather said there is no standstill, right? You're either moving backwards or moving forwards. There is no standstill.
yeah. But even those challenges, right, make you a better human,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So, yeah,
Yeah. Man, this has been awesome.
dude.
I love you so much, man. Love you, man. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us on this episode of Vendor Voices. Looking forward to seeing you at the next one. And again, Ray, thank you so much, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Thanks for watching.